Hi everyone, my name's Barry. I just thought I would do a short video for those that are just starting out in wood turning. You just need some basic tools to start out wood turning. Obviously you need a lathe, then you need some wood tools and some wood. I've been woodworking for many years. I just started wood turning about 10 years ago. I got this old shopsmith tool which had a lathe component to it. And I started turning with it, which isn't a great lathe, to be quite honest with you. It's pretty bouncy, it's not very heavy, and there isn't much variety in what you can do with it. And I started with the small pieces and worked up to, thought I could turn a big piece of wood on this lathe, and put it on, turned it on, got a catch, and ended up breaking the spindle off the lathe on this lathe. So obviously I had to get another lathe. And my next lathe I got, wasn't quite sure what I wanted, and I ended up with this General International lathe, which actually fit perfectly right on top of my old shopsmith. And that's just great because the shopsmith has wheels that you can move the lathe around, and so it worked perfect for me. The lathe is a basic lathe. It's a variable speed. The lathe came with a spur, a wood worm, and a small faceplate. And I turned a lot of stuff just in between centers with this lathe, and never really used some of the features this lathe has until I got a chuck and I was looking at different lathes to use, and finally figured out that this lathe actually has a turning headstock. So you can actually turn this headstock out, and you can actually turn a bowl this way on this lathe, or this, you can slide this to the very end and turn off the end of the lathe also. So this is, I would say, just a basic lathe. I mean, the features are the headstock slides up and down and turns, but really it's just a small, very easy to use lathe. So you have the lathe, now comes the expensive part. I think this lathe cost me around $1,200, which isn't a bad price for this size lathe. But then you have to buy a chuck, you have to buy the tools, so everything starts adding up. So I would say that the basic tools you need to get wood turning is, of course, the lathe, the tools. You want something to sharpen your tools with. You can use anything from a disc sander. I've seen people use belt sanders. You can use bench grinder. I ended up upgrading to a bench grinder. I was using this faceplate for a long time to turn my tools. And I just turned my tools freehand. I set up a little plate on here, and that's what I used to turn my tools. Up until about, I'm going to say 5 years ago, I actually started out with a high-speed grinder, and I got rid of it and got a low-speed grinder, which I like a lot better than the high-speed grinder. And I made up my own jigs for it. You can find all kinds of stuff on YouTube. If any ideas of what you need or things that you want, just check out YouTube. YouTube has everything you could ever want. I mean, the other tools you're going to want to start out with is you're going to want a drill, like I say, the turning tools. You're going to need probably a shop vac. I use an electric chainsaw to cut my wood up to the size I want it. One thing nice about an electric chainsaw, I just work out of my basement in my home here, and you can just run the electric chainsaw right in your basement. It's no big deal. Or you can just buy blanks. I mean, there's such a variety of things you can actually turn on the lathe. You can turn acrylic, you can turn so many things on the lathe. For safety, you're probably going to want a face shield. I use this face shield. I use this dust mask. This is a trend dust mask. It's very good. It's so comfortable. You can wear it I can wear hours on end, and I don't even realize I have it on. I'll put a link at the bottom to where I got these. It was actually at Stockroom Supply. Great place to do your shopping. You can get stuff online from them. So now you got the lathe. Now what you need is something to turn. So, I mean, I've turned all kinds of stuff. You can start out with things like this in between centers. This is what I use. I make flowers with these little sticks. You can go with bigger stuff. You can make vases, whatever. Or you can actually buy bowl blanks at wood places. The only thing you have to be careful of is the safety aspect of what you're turning. So you have to be knowledgeable about what you're putting on your lathe, how you're holding it, making sure that everything is in between. If you're turning in between centers, that everything's tight and well balanced. The last thing you want is something flying off the lathe, which has happened and probably will happen to you. You get a nice catch and all of a sudden the piece of wood isn't on the lathe anymore, it's across the room. Basically, as long as you're careful, you take it easy, anything you want to know about turning you can find on YouTube. I'm a firm believer in hands-on. You take something, you put it on the lathe, you try it, you be very careful about what you're doing, but you just turn and turn and turn, and you'll learn everything you need to know just by doing yourself on the lathe. But by all means, I've checked out, when I first started, I went online, I checked out techniques, and there's all kinds of different videos out there and some great turners with great knowledge that you can basically learn just online of how to turn a piece of wood, what tools to use, the aspects of the tools you're using, all kinds of information online. But I, personally, I like to put a piece of wood on the lathe and take all my different tools, see what they do, how they work. And if you get a catch, you get a catch. Then you know, okay, well, that didn't work quite the way I thought it was going to work, so then you have to try something different. I mean, there's all kinds of tools that you can buy, but basically I bought a basic wood turning set to start out with my wood turning. I bought the basic tools. I actually bought these from Lee Valley. I don't know where you're at, you have a Lee Valley, but I mean, it's a store that you can buy stuff online. I think this set was, as you can see, it's 5 pieces. There's a 3/8 bowl gouge, a 1/2-inch bowl gouge, a parting tool, a 1/8 parting tool, a round nose scraper, and a flat nose scraper. And I think this cost me $150, I believe it was, around $150. They're high-speed steel. They're not the greatest tools, but this is what I started out with, and I still use these every time I turn. I'm using one of these tools. So that's the basic tools. I mean, you can. It all depends on what you're doing as far as turning. If you're going to do a lot of spindle turning, then they have a kit that is actually for spindle turning. I do a lot of bowl turning, vases. That's what I like doing. And those are the tools that I use. You turn, it's like an addiction. You're down here like every day turning, and all of a sudden you're taking things up in your life season, and you're thinking, okay, now, or whoever is going to say, what are you going to do with all these things that you've turned now? And I've accumulated a fair bit of stuff. I mean, you can give lots of stuff away, but you still end up with a lot of product that you've turned. Some is really nice, some isn't. Yeah, the more you do it, the better you get at it, of course. But people always appreciate giving a piece for their birthday or for Christmas or whatever. But I still end up turning a lot more than what I could ever just give away, or would want to give away, I think. So I do a few craft shows, 2 craft shows a year, and it gives me a little bit of money to buy more tools. Because once you've bought the lathe and you've got your starter set of tools, then there's quite a bit of expense that comes along with wood turning. So you have all these add-ons that you want to get. Now for the lathe, the add-ons I would say is, this lathe comes with this live center. This live center isn't the best of live centers. I've already replaced the bearing in this live center once. So what I've done is I've gone and I've purchased a more expensive live center. So I have the one-way, this is a one-way live center. And this live center came with these two options, which thread on here. There's a pin that goes in here to lock this, and these thread on. This one can go this way or this way, which is a great feature. So that is one upgrade. The next thing you'll want is a chuck, because the chucks do not come with the lathes normally. So I purchased this chuck. I believe I think this is a one-way stronghold chuck, if I remember correctly. And of course that just threads on your headstock. Comes with an adapter. The adapter has a rub screw there that you can tighten down with your Allen key, so that you can actually, you want to make sure if you turn in reverse that you tighten this down very well. And that way you can turn forward and reverse with the feature of this lathe. And it came with these jaws, which I open up to, I think, 2.5 inches, these jaws open up to. And then I bought another jaw, another stronghold chuck, and bought a bigger set of jaws for it. It's always nice to have two chucks. That way you don't have to keep switching out the jaws. So those are other upgrades. And they run, I think these were $235, these ones. So you have those, then you want to upgrade to some more tools. So I have upgraded to an Ellsworth gouge. This is a P&N tool that I bought the Hollisk, and I made my own handle for this tool. These are two carbide tipped tools that you can buy the bars, and the tips come. So you get the bars, you make your own handles. I ordered these from Big Guy Productions. That's probably anybody that's been on YouTube watching videos has seen Captain Eddie Castellan. That's his Big Guy Productions. If you want tips, he's a great guy to watch. So there's those that I've bought. I bought this setup here is actually King Canada. I bought those, I believe, at, no it doesn't, Tegs Tools in Hamilton. That complete set was $165. They're not the best of tools, but like I say, you don't need the best. You make sure they're sharp, learn how to use them, and they will do. You can always upgrade as you go along. Then I make some of my tools too. I have a hollowing tool here that I use. This is actually a pry bar that had the pry on the end. I took it, I cut the pry off, I heated this up a little bit, I bent it, put this little bend in it, put it on a handle, and when I'm using it, if I'm turning very deep vessels, I just put a pair of vice grips on it, just so that I have a little bit more control. And away you go. You put it on your tool rest, of course, and away you go. You can hollow the inside out. It doesn't hold an edge really well, but so you go sharpen it. You got to sharpen it twice through your turning, you have, there you go, you have a tool. I think I bought a set of these. I have this one, this tool that I made for hollowing. It comes in 4 different sizes. I took this tool, I ground the end of it, put a curl in it. I use this for making captured rings. If you grind it properly, you can capture both sides. So there was a set of, I think, 4 pry bars, and they were like $29 at Princess Auto. What else? Parting tools. For thin parting tools, I just take reciprocating blades, grind off, and I got all these ideas I got off the YouTube. So these aren't my original ideas. These are ideas that I got from somebody else. Just took a blade, ground off the teeth, tapered it a little bit on either side on the grinder, and made a handle, and it works fine. So this, basically this was a blade that I got from where I work that had worn out. The blade cost me nothing. The handle is a piece of maple. I believe this is a piece of maple. So it cost me next to nothing to make this. And I've made 3 of them, different sizes. What else do I use? There's something I use too for parting off when I make flowers, because the stem is so small. So I turn these little flowers out of this little stick, and when I get down to that point, I just take, all it is a flathead screwdriver. I've ground the end the way I want it to suit the purposes I want to use it for, and that is what I part these flowers off with. Very simple. I can use this with one hand, catch the flower, and away you go. So like I say, online there is so many tips, so many people with ingenious ideas, that your tools don't have to be really expensive. You can make a lot of them yourself if you're handy. Here's another tool that I've made up to hollow out. This is a Kelton handle. I actually have the Kelton set to core out bowls, but unfortunately this lathe isn't quite powerful enough to use it properly. So I just use the handle for this. Once I upgrade my lathe, which is supposed to be coming in July, I would hope. I've ordered a new lathe. So other upgrades that I've got, I mean, in my shop I've upgraded. I've got a drill press. I mean, it's not an expensive drill press. It works fine for what I do. What I usually use this drill press for is if I'm using a froster bit to start the center of a smaller bowl, that's what I use. Throw it on here, throw it down. I mentioned the upgrade on the low-speed grinder. This is an 8-inch King low-speed grinder. And I have a 14-inch King bandsaw. Now, what I would like to do with this bandsaw is there's an extension kit you can put on here so that instead of just having 7 inches in here, I think it ends up being up to 12 inches. So that's that. And another upgrade, which I did with this lathe, is I got a vacuum chuck for this lathe. And again, all this I got off of YouTube. The ideas I got off YouTube. YouTube is great. The internet, you go on the internet, you can find out anything you want pretty well about anything. And just be careful. Most guys doing YouTube videos showing you how to do things know what they're talking about. But just be careful. So, I mean, I haven't come across any that I would trust, but I'm sure there are some out there that, you know, when you start to do the job, you're thinking, okay, well, is this really going to work or not? But you should know. So So I ended up buying I researched this. This is a Robinair Vac-Master 5500. And I bought the connections. You can find that all on YouTube. Unfortunately, my lathe in the headstock, I was lucky enough that I don't throw much stuff away, so I was lucky enough to find a bearing that fit right inside the headstock. So that slides right into there. You have a lathe. I had a little piece of metal tubing that didn't quite fit inside that bearing. I put it in my lathe. I have this Jacobson drill chuck with a mortise, number 2 mortise on it. Threw it in my lathe, put that in, took a piece of file and a sandpaper, made sure it fit inside that bearing tight, a little bit of CA glue on it, put it in there, it works perfect. The only drawback to it is, once you've installed that in there, you can't get a rod through to push out your taper. So you just end up using a wrench and a block of wood and bang it over there. It doesn't take much. And again, I found all this information I got off YouTube. Vacuum, a piece to hold your bowl. You can buy, this is the Beal Tool Company. Again, I got this at Lee Valley. It's a tap. So that will tap wood. Exact, you can buy different sizes. This one that is the same size as the headstock, which is you can see that it's 1 UNC, so it's a 1-inch spindle. I made these, again, YouTube. There's guys on YouTube that show you exactly how to do these. You thread it on. You take your hose from your vacuum pump, put it on that little piece of metal there. This does not have to come out of the lathe. That piece of metal, I just leave it in there all the time. You turn on your vacuum pump. It's hardly any noise on that. So that will I have a hard time getting that off of there. You're not supposed to actually break the seal on the vacuum unless you turn it off. But it works great. You can a great addition. Like I said, the pump was $200, I believe. So I mean, this is something that I've been doing this for 10 years. I just bought that this year and made up these. Great addition. You throw a bowl on here, you can finish off the end of it. It's great. It's great. I really like it. So those are some of the things that I have, and I have accumulated these over a number of years. You just can't go out and buy all this stuff at once unless you're made of money. I'm on a limited budget, so I kind of do things as I have the money. I get the things that I want, but you can certainly enjoy turning with just the basic in-between centers, a faceplate. It works great. You can turn bowls just with a faceplate. You don't need all the other stuff to start out with.